I'm not on camera, I feel very, very weak still yet, and I've had to take to my bed for almost 2 weeks now. Um, I've urged in my forecasts, the weeklies, which you now can find on my website, www.3keysastrology, each week. I would do these laborious weekly forecasts written for you on our Facebook page in our private group, and they would disappear, or only select few would see them. So if you're interested in my work, you can find my weekly forecasts on my website. This video that I'm making you today is about the full moon in Pisces. And we're going to talk a lot about that energy because we have a bit of concentration in our chart that depicts this new moon, which will happen around 3:30 in the morning if you're on the East Coast on February 27th. And excuse me, each new moon represents a new beginning, and yet when I talked to you, when I did your new moon in Aquarius video, I explained that it's the new moon is a time of darkness in the night sky. So the sun, which gives the moon her light, is protecting the moon. And I want you to think of that theme whenever we have new moons. So while new moons are new beginnings, and this one happens to be at 9 degrees of Pisces, it means the sun and moon are together, creating something new in your life. I'm going to go through the chart for you and tell you where this new moon will be and what it means for you. But first we have to take a look at the astrological configurations. And new moon times, you have a 12-hour period of kind of a reclusive internal beginning, because all beginnings begin in our hearts. And the sun represents our heart and the energy of our desires, as does the moon, which represents our emotional needs and what we need to feel safe and secure in this world. Now, a new moon in Pisces, we have to get to the essence of the Pisces personality when we want to discover what this means. So you could have your sun in the 12th house and be Pisces. You could have it in the 7th house and be Pisces. And so I'm expecting that if you've been listening to me and you're part of my group for a while, that you absolutely know your chart, and that you've come to me for birth chart readings, and then repeated your business with me and got consequential readings such as the here and now. That's quite powerful. So rather than baby step and handhold you through the houses, I'm going to make the assumption that you know which house your sun is in. The new moon in Pisces is the sun and moon together in Pisces. So you should absolutely know what house your Pisces house is in. And when you're a rising sign, that's what the astrologers do when they go through the signs, saying if you're Pisces rising, if you're Aquarius rising, if you're Capricorn rising. And so I'll do that for you during this intervention and discussion about where the moon is and what it means in each of these houses. But first, when I was talking about the warnings and the unfortunate experience for us to deliver such warning or threat when we're astrologers, of course there's always goodness, and of course goodness prevails evil. But one of the things I have been saying, and I will continue to say, is that we have to be very mindful of being in public settings and public places. Now, as a consequence of being at a very busy funeral, every one of us in the family were infected with this airborne contagion. That's really made me weak and made it very difficult to breathe. The other caution I have about being in groups is not only the contagions that are in the air, but the dangers that we have, because we've had Mars opposing Pluto since the end of November, and this doesn't resolve itself for a while. We're going to have this configuration come back together in point, and that's an angry public and people that are losing their heads, like I explained to you when I made you the full moon in Leo video, because the sun and moon were opposing each other and were in a direct, powerful square to the planet Uranus, which is in the degrees near Algol, the left eye of the bull in the constellation. But it's more people born at the end of May or the beginning of June that have this losing of their minds or losing their heads or being unreasonable and irascible. That energy is still very strong. We've got a square to Uranus, where not only is Uranus at that Algol symbol, but again, this is in a square to the sun and the moon at this very new moon in Pisces energy. We also have a square to Jupiter in Gemini, and I'll get into the details about that with you, but first I'd like to talk to you about the energy of Pisces. And if you're Pisces, it's your birthday. This is a very important time for you, but it comes at a cost of forcing you to be very realistic right now. The reason being is that we have the sun and moon at 9 degrees of Pisces. We have Saturn at 20 degrees of Pisces, Mercury at 23 degrees of Pisces, the North Node at 27 degrees of Pisces, and an anaretic Neptune at 28 degrees of Pisces. And Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. And these two planets, Jupiter and Neptune, rule us in the outer world, and Neptune has everything to do with your emotional well-being. And Jupiter is a great benefic, and it's a planet that's is a blessing planet and a planet that gives prosperity, but only and if only you adhere to its pure nature, which is truth and justice. So at this time of the new moon, in Pisces, we have Jupiter in Gemini, which is a duplicitous energy, squaring the sun and the moon. And this can be literally a splitting of your mind, especially for Gemini rising or you're a Gemini sun. And this is being caught with indecision. And the only way to get honest about that is to get honest and tap into your heart's energy and be vulnerable enough to realize what you want and need. So that's a little insight for Gemini especially, which counters and bounces back to you, Pisces. So Pisces, this energy of Pisces, and when you're born, a new moon baby in Pisces, you can often have your Mercury in Pisces as well. And Mercury is not in dignity in Pisces, which means Pisces have difficulty telling the truth. And that's a debilitated position for Pisces, and that's where Pisces is right now. And again, this energy of Mercury being very close to the North Node within 4 degrees and being very close to Neptune within 5 degrees. And it's encouraging you, Pisces especially, about getting honest with yourself. For the next 18 months, you'll have a North Node in Pisces, which for you, Pisces, is a fated and can be a very blessed embracing of your spiritual values and encouraging your integrity. Because if you're not speaking the truth and you're not living the truth, you are going to have all kinds of problems. And so while new moons are new beginnings, with the configurations that we have now, this chart is demanding your honesty, Pisces, and it's demanding your integrity. And I'll explain why. So the questions for all of us, because we have Pisces somewhere in all of our charts, if you're Pisces, this will be in your first house, a Pisces rising. If you are Sagittarius, this will be in your fourth house of home and family. Could be something to do with your parents. If you're Virgo, this is in your seventh house. If you're Virgo rising, so this has to do with your partners, business, and marital. This is also your open enemies, Virgo. And you have the South Node there too, so you're really being required to let go of things. If you're Gemini, this is occurring in your 10th house of profession. Again, it could have something to do with your father or your mother. And it has everything to do with your reputation. And again, when we have this duplicitous Jupiter in this square configuration to the sun and the moon, you have to get really honest about your purpose and how you're serving Gemini. If you're Aries, this new moon is happening in your 12th house. So this is quite personal for you. And Aries, you're going through issues regarding love and money. And unfortunately, during this new moon in Pisces, we have a Venus-Mars square that's rather prominent and causing difficulty for lovers or couples in general, no matter what sign you're in, but most especially for you, Aries, and most especially for you, Cancer. So this new moon falls in your 12th house, Aries, and you can really take the time to nurture yourself and think about your values and whether you're being treated respectfully when it comes to love and money. If you're Capricorn, this is happening in your 3rd house. So this new moon can be issues with your brothers or sisters. This can be something to do with transportation. It could indeed mean some kind of breakdown with your vehicle, and it has to do with the way you're communicating. And it's time for some new honesty, Capricorn. If you're Libra, this is happening in your everyday affairs, your 6th house. But we have Black Moon Lilith here. So Libra, you're really being asked second to Pisces to get very honest about your feelings and your intentions. If you're Cancer, this is happening in your 9th house. And this is difficult, Cancer, because I'm a Cancer rising like you, we have been really wrestling with our feelings of anger, feelings of inferiority, feelings of frustration, because we've had Mars hanging over us, hence the reason many of us have gotten sick. Mars is infection, and Mars just went station direct, but it's still in Cancer, so it's still debilitated. And we're being asked to get really honest. And because Cancer has Mars there, we're warring with our feelings and our relationships that are quite personal, our love relationships, and our relationship in a couple to the finances and benefits and deficits of being linked to someone else financially or professionally or in love. This applies to Cancers and Aries, especially where that Venus and Mars square is. If you're Taurus rising, this is happening in your 11th house, and this new moon energy is talking to you about the groups that you belong to and the friendships that you have. And we've got Algol here, remember. So we're going to talk a little bit about the right eye of the bull, which is the fixed star Aldebaran. And we're going to talk about, we've talked at length about Algol, the Medusa energy of losing your mind in a head full of poisonous snakes and toxins. And so if you're Taurus rising, you've got to come to the realization about whether or not that's going on in your friendship groups or somebody putting some kind of poison or toxins in your homes and dreams. If you're Scorpio, this is quite personal because this is happening in your 5th house. And this new moon is encouraging you to be really honest about what you need, Scorpio. Sometimes you don't tell your lover or your partner or your employer or your family member or your adult child just what it is that you need, Scorpio, because you hide behind this facade of protection, and rather than being vulnerable because the Scorpio has a stinger, you'd rather war and fight. And at this new moon in Pisces, the harmony that's coming with this grace is that it's okay to put your stinger down, take your shell off, and admit what you really want and need in relationships. That kind of honesty will go far for you. If you're Leo, this is happening in your 8th house. And this is a really personal house. Again, this is where we peek to look at the behind the closed doors in the bedroom of couples. It's a very personal house, Leo rising. And this is about your shared money with your partner. This is about anything that you're getting that's coming from another entity, like your stocks and bonds, the dividends that you're paid. It could be child support you're getting for your children if you're in a divorce relationship. It has to do with alimony if that was part of a divorce agreement. So this is very personal to Leo rising. And this new moon, again, is requiring honesty. And because the 8th house is a legal house as well, when it comes to contracts and such things as inheritance and legacy and monies exchanged in business and propriety, it's time for you, especially Leo rising, to make sure those I's are dotted and those T's are crossed when it comes to wills and contracts with your employer, agreements you've made with your partner about spending. And so I've covered it all, I believe. If you're Aquarius, it's your 2nd house. Again, Taurus, your 11th house. Scorpio, your 5th house. So when we talk about the Pisces new moon, we have to get really in touch with Pisces energy. And Pisces, in a little catchy tune, has the urge to merge. Pisces, however, are 2 fish tied at the tail. One pulling in one direction, one pulling in another direction. And therefore, we can have a lot of conflict with our Pisces lovers and friends because they have this duplicitous nature to go with the flow and to blend into wherever they belong, which is very difficult for signs that expect honor integrity. Pisces is the mystic, and because it's ruled by Neptune and Jupiter, it has an affiliation with the 12th house, which is an end-of-life house, and it has an affection for all the unseen world, the mystic world. Pisces often love or hate religion. In that tide at the tail of the 2 fish, one swimming one way and one swimming the other, you'll see the extreme of their feelings. Now, Pisces' polar opposite side is Virgo, and so while they seem amenable and friendly and warm, and gosh, they're one of my favorite signs, their dual nature is that they're critical and picky and a little self-involved, Virgo. And so in the hierarchy of needs, what Pisces needs is security. And when we have a new moon in Pisces, this will apply to every house that we're talking about that I just mentioned, should your Pisces new moon fall into those houses. So Pisces people are quite creative. They're ruled by the element of water, which is the emotional realm. And at this time and place on February 27th at 9 degrees of a sun and moon, new moon in Pisces, we have 6 planets, more than half of our 10 planets in the constellation, plus our north node, in this very watery emotional energy. Pisces are dreamy and spiritual. They're compassionate, but they struggle with sadness, loneliness, and depression. And it's because they want so badly to belong. And so Pisces energy is psychic, and they're very attuned to what's going on in the room and to unspoken words. So we will all get a blessing to have this kind of energy as this comes along. So during this new moon in Pisces, we have to each get honest about what we're feeling intuitively, and we have to give honor to that. I literally want you to put your hand on your heart if you're confounded and you're those torn fishes, one swimming upstream, one going downstream, because that doesn't solve anything. That just creates chaos. And with Neptune in an anaretic degree, we're going to have a lot of fog on the planet. We're going to have a lot of flooding on the planet. We're going to have a lot of mud as all this snow starts to melt, and it's messy and it's not pretty, and that can apply to you emotionally. So I want you to think about that. I think one of the things, another dilemma for the Pisces is they can be enslaved. While they're very service oriented and they're great in health professions, the counter is Virgo. So we're talking about the slave and the king energy that's in a complex too, that we've got to discuss as we talk about this new moon. So one of the things that's going to be very important to all of us during this new moon in Pisces is that we have to get healthy emotionally, and in coming along to that new moon blessing, to embrace what it means to have a new beginning in Pisces, we have to get very honest about what we feel strongly about. And if those feelings are negative, we have to totally indulge that and figure out why. And again, you're going to have to put your hand on your heart. We have Venus in a square to Mars, and that's a lot of us feeling confounded in our loving relationships. The new moon in Pisces question is, how lonely am I in this relationship? Are my needs being fulfilled? Am I fulfilling the needs of my partner? Because a new moon is a new creation. And we can ask, do we need boundaries in this relationship? Because Pisces has a lot of difficulty with boundaries, and they get in a lot of trouble, and they're considered dishonest because they'll drift into other waters and go where they know they don't belong, and yet being so needy and craving so much attention and wanting to belong so badly, they often fall in with the wrong company and really convolute their lives. So during this new moon, each of us have to say, but you especially Pisces, you especially Virgo, you especially Gemini and Sagittarius, am I protecting myself by having stronger boundaries? This applies to all of us, though, because we have Pisces, this new moon somewhere in our charts. Am I taking care of my own needs first? Because one of Pisces' handicaps is that they want to be in service and be helpful to everybody that asks for their help. And so they spread themselves very thin. And the truth is, you can't achieve and accomplish when you have scattered energy, or when you're humbling yourself before everybody and their brother, before you treat and care for your own needs or the needs of your family and those that are closest to you. I'd like to talk to you right now about this energy and the fixed stars that are pretty significant in this new moon Pisces energy. One of the first things I'd like to talk to you about is that we have a royal star named Formaho that is at 9 degrees of Pisces, where this new moon is. And this can indeed mean environmental sensitivity and allergies. So there's a lot of histamine reactions going on. And if you, like me, are having bronchial or pneumonia symptoms, or symptoms where you can't get enough oxygen to your heart and your brain, you feel lightheaded, you feel weak, these histamine reactions are happening because of environmental sensitivity. And so we have to really clean up our homes and our families, but most importantly, our emotional well-being. So this royal star, Formaho, often depicts a nemesis for those that are born around 9 degrees Pisces, and that means a fall from grace. And how does that happen? Well, your nemesis is your pride and your hubris, and your you Pisces, who might drift into waters where you don't belong to connect with people that you know are illicit or illegal, and doing those illicit, illegal things, because Pisces do very easily, in their desire to belong, to be acknowledged, to seek attention. And this fall from grace comes right from your own ego. So because we have this square to Jupiter in Gemini, we have to, in order to counter this fall from grace, in this lack of boundary, where we have this urge to merge with things that are unsavory or people that are unsavory. Pisces rules the prostitute. Virgo is the virgin. And somewhere in those crosshairs of those two fish tied at the tail, we each have to ask ourselves, are we whoring ourselves out? Are we selling a part of ourselves to belong to something or someone or some organization? And that's crass and it's crude, but that's the bittersweet truth of the two fish tied at the tail. And we know that a fish, it doesn't take long for a fish to become very smelly. And unfortunately, when you're born Pisces, this is one of the dilemmas that you'll face in the cross of your life by your lack of boundaries and this desire of yours by your ego to merge and to belong and to partake in debauchery and sin. At 23 degrees of Pisces, we have another fixed star in the heavens called Merkab. And this fixed star is very close to our North Node in Pisces, which is going to rule Pisces' lives when fated moments are going to come to them in this next 18 months. And these are things that are beyond your control. And this star is really about stability under pressure. And this is applying to your North Node, which you have to really talk about. Your bittersweet madnesses, Pisces, what are you indulging in? What are you escaping to? Whose arms are you running to that are forbidden? Is it a drug? Is it drink? Is it some kind of substance to alter your mind, to help you forget your problems? So this fixed star Merkab is about stability under pressure, and it's about right action. And so you need to be very, very careful at this time of the new moon, Pisces, because this is kind of the saddle of think about a saddle on a horse. What keeps you balanced and stable? If the horse is life and you're racing towards something or away from something, because Pisces likes the great escape. They love their secrets, and they're often pretty hard to penetrate in psychoanalysis because they're ashamed of their secrets, and yet they find them delicious. So one of the things that I have to caution you about is we have a character in history whose legacy is deadly. King Henry VIII had this star on him, and in his confidence and hubris, he was so consumed with his own ego that he took the lives of people and treated people and other humans disposably. And in his hubris, he fought the Catholic Church and turned a whole country, and then another whole country, England and Scotland, and the world in the times of his life in the 1500s, into this diabolical complex between it would mean your life, whether you protested that you were no longer Catholic and now you were Protestant. And he only did this so he could divorce his wife, his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, who was Catholic, so that he could have his lover and then his next lover and his next lover and his next lover, because the Catholic Church doesn't recognize multiple marriages. And so in his hubris, in his arrogance, and his disposal of human beings and organizations such as the Catholic Church, now everyone in the court and everyone in the land be beholden to him, as because he was the ultimate baron of properties, had to be very careful about their faith. And a lot of lives were lost over religion. So these are the two tails of the fish tied again, one swimming Catholic, one swimming Protestant. And during the Reformation, this great divide in religion is something else that we can see, where these two fish are twinning off, one swimming upstream, one swimming downstream, and to save their life. So Merkab, this fixed star, wants you to remain solid and confident and sure in right action. And these themes keep being repeated in this chart that I'm looking at for this new moon in Pisces. We've got Jupiter in Gemini at 12 degrees, and this star happens to be the right eye of the bull. So we talked about the left eye of the bull, where Uranus is, near Algol, and that losing our mind. But the right eye is the watcher of the east, and this is a royal star, royal Persian star, just like Formiho in Pisces is a royal Persian star. And Jupiter happens to be falling under the rays of Aldebaran, which is the right eye of the bull, the watcher of the east. And he's lord of contracts that are only sustained by purity, integrity, and honesty. And if one fails in honesty, integrity, or purity, he or she will be condemned to fire. So this can be success in grand projects with where Jupiter is, because it's squaring the new moon, though, the sun and moon in Pisces, where we have Mercury not being honest and Saturn not liking to belong in Pisces. Saturn wants you to have boundaries and duty and discipline, and yet those are falling to the wayside in Pisces. And we've got Neptune at an anadoretic degree, causing a bit of chaos and dramas and unclear. Pisces likes to be a seer. They want to see into the future, feel into the unseen world, see beyond the veil, and yet Neptune's there in disguise. And we're not seeing as clearly as we need to be because of this square. So again, we have another fixed star, Aldebaran, the watcher of the east, saying it's honesty, it's sitting upright, it's holding onto your saddle, being steadfast, because Jupiter rules truth and justice and honesty. The next star that I want to talk to you about is Shet, and that's at 29 degrees Pisces, and it's important because we've got our north node at 27 degrees. And Shet, the stars in this Pisces constellation, where Formiho is, where Merkab is, and where Shet is, happen to be the winged horse, Pegasus. And this winged horse, again, we talked about remaining steadfast on your saddle of life, holding that saddle, holding your head up, your spine erect, and riding upright toward truth and justice, not running away from things you're afraid of, things you feel vulnerable about, things that you've sold or hoard yourself out to, such as pills or drink or other people, in your escapisms. So Shet at 29 degrees Pisces is the power in the front legs of the horse. It's right up there where the thigh meets the hip, on the front part of the horse. And what is that? That is power. So think about a stallion running toward the truth, a white stallion and a black stallion tied at the tail, one running one way, running the other way. And this 29 degrees of Pisces is the power of the horse's front legs, but he's rushing toward truth. This is a lover of the intellect, but in conflict with the challenges of logic. And so again, we all have to ask ourselves about what our truth is. What do we need? Are our needs being met? And we have to come to our heart. So I would caution you right now not to sign contracts, because that star in Aldebaran, the Lord of Contracts, says that if you're breaking vows, if you're dishonoring contracts, then you're condemned to fire, which is legal problems and hells. Before I end this video, I'd like to talk to you about what it means when you have this new moon in your first house, and that would be you, Pisces. And it gives you a magnetism and kind of a charm and respect. There's a lot of emotional intensity when you have the moon in your first house, and we Cancer risings know this because we're born with this. There's an emotional force behind your goals, and you can be consumed by romantic love and the dreamy other world when you have the moon in your first house. So this new moon for Pisces rising is indeed happening there. Now, if this is happening in your second house, excuse me, please. You crave financial stability. And this new moon here is going to ask you to get in touch with your finances. And this is you, Aquarius, rising. So you're going to have to look at that combined money between the second and eighth house, the Aquarius and Leo of your lives. And this is also not just your possessions and your material goods, but the moon here is also about your security. And with Pisces being here, this is about your emotional security. Now, when the moon falls in your third house, and this is you, Capricorn, this is a curiosity, and it can be challenges about the way you communicate, and you can really be a little bit fogged over about puzzling situations or people that don't seem to be telling the truth. And so you've got to get still and quiet, put your hand on your heart, and figure out how honest your communications are and whether you're communicating the truth or not. The moon in your fourth house, and this is coming for Sagittarius rising, is perfect. This is a planetary joy because the moon loves to be here. This is a Cancer house. And this is being deeply connected to your family, especially your mom, and your roots, and a love for ancestry. So for you, Sagittarius rising, this is getting back in touch with your nurturing energy and your compassion and protection and care for your family at this full moon, or new moon in Pisces, excuse me. Now, when the moon happens, the new moon in Pisces in your fifth house, and this would be you, Scorpio, you love the pleasure of being in love. You love falling in love and that excitement. You're a very creative soul when you have your moon in this house. And so you'll be excellent at the arts and creating something out of nothing. But you have to be careful with this new moon in Pisces that you're not pasting something false on love and romance. And you also have to take the disguise off when it comes to your adult children, and not be in any fantasy regarding this. Now, when the moon falls in your sixth house, and this is happening to Libra, and it's dangerous because there's a black moon Lilith creature. Either it's your workplace that you're having an affair with, or perhaps you're sleeping with the boss, or you're trying to get favor and promotion in a black moon Lilith way. This is a health house too, so like we talked about the histamines, the allergies and environmental contagions, they can be really affecting you. And this is a question that you have to ask yourself about what are you whoring yourself out to? And that's a really personal question, Libra, but are you forsaking yourself in some kind of marriage or romantic situation? Are you accepting crumbs? And we've got to get really internal and emotional in answering those questions, and you can't afford to float off in your head, Libra. You have to be in touch with your heart. This can also be, if you're feeling lonely, Libra, this is a good time to get a little pet, someone to take care of and someone to love and to help you increase that love energy, especially because we have Venus and Mars in a square. Now, if the moon falls in your seventh house, and this is new moon in Virgo, this new moon in Pisces is falling for you, Virgo, in your seventh house, and this is an ability to connect to other people easily. You want and crave emotional security from a significant other, but you can have mood swings and be dependent on your lover, and they can be your be all end all, and it can and for some kind of codependency. So with the new moon in Pisces here, you have to ask how happy you are in your loving relationship, and is it balanced? And are you riding steady and sure on that saddle of life on your winged horse of hopes and dreams? It's really important. You have to let go of some critical thought that you have where people don't seem to be good enough, or they can't measure up, or maybe you're being overly critical of your partner, and that's caused a big divide in your love and relationships. Now, if the moon comes in your 8th house, and this is you, Leo, this new moon in Pisces, this is a highly emotional home. It's the house of Scorpio, so you can be intense and secretive and suspicious. With the new moon in Pisces here and all of the fog and confusion, Leo, you have to ask yourself how honest you're being in relationship to your love with others, and whether or not the relationship has integrity. This is a blessing and a curse, because it's a house where we can't be in partnership without being somewhat codependent, and yet we still have to remain independent in relationships, and that's not always easy. Now, for Cancers, this is happening in your 9th house. The moon in your 9th, this new moon in your 9th house, is an area where in relationships you need to be free, and you can have that expression in this new moon by higher learning, or by traveling to a foreign country, or being involved in with someone from another country to open your horizons. And your winged horse is asking you to fly higher to new realms, and maybe to let go of that partnership that just depletes you or makes you weak. Now, if you're having this new moon in your 10th house, and this is you, Gemini, this is being recognized at your workplace, and this is about your reputation and your service in the world. And with the North Node here as well, this is about your soul purpose. Are you indeed guided in achievement in your position of authority at your workplace? So that's going to be your question. Now, you, Taurus, it's happening to this new moon in Pisces, happening in your 11th house. And this is an opportunity for you to help others that are struggling with equality, or if their tails are tied and they seem to be going in different directions. You could be led to lead to help stop the confusion and help stop the phoniness in relationships where people are just appeasing each other or going with the flow and not having boundaries. And then if you're Aries, this new moon is happening in your 12th house. And this can be difficult. Like I said, it's especially because Venus is here in Aries, and it's going to go retrograde, which it doesn't have the same amount of power or forthcoming or forthrightness. So you, Aries, have to ask yourself, are you involved in secretive relationships? Are you being hidden away because you're not worthy to be the bride and stand in front of the church and the congregation? This new moon in Pisces is asking you to get in touch with your illusions about what your love life is doing. It can make you feel really drained emotionally and physically. And in the 12th house, we have to take time alone and examine our place in the pie. We have to examine where we don't have enough boundaries, and we have to examine where we're living in a fantasy world and get realistic in order to have honesty, purity, and integrity. And with that, I'm going to close this. I wish you all an honest, integral new moon in Pisces, where your hands on your heart and you're living authentically and honestly. Bye for now.